I wish I was a baller.
I just need a little more time.
I got mouths to feed. I don't need one more.
Hey, I'm driving here.
All my life, I've always wanted to play professional
I
roarball,
wish I was a little bit taller.
Oh, you must have lost your mass.
where the fiercest animals compete, but there's only one problem. I'm a small.
A goat.
A go?
Wanna bet? Is one shot. The world, this kid got game.
I need to hear it.
Bye. Bye.
You goats are weird.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller.
Boom! Fillmore Ford in the flesh. Normally, he sell for around 6.
Pristine upper mesh, taut laces.
Nutty.
Nasty.
What if I told you Go 2026 is hiding twists and details fans are already talking about? From powerful moments to surprising facts you probably missed, welcome to Kaka Film, where every movie has secrets worth discovering. Go 2026 is an American animated sports comedy movie made by Columbia Pictures, Sony Pictures Animation, Unanimous Media, and Modern Magic Productions. The movie was directed by Tyree Dillehay. The main character, Will Harris, is voiced by Caleb McLaughlin. Will is an animated goat who dreams of becoming the greatest player of all time in a fast and exciting sport called Rollerball. Developed the cast, which is similar to basketball. The movie also features many well-known actors and celebrities, including Gabrielle Union, Aaron Pierre, Nikita Coughlin, David Harbour, Nick Kroll, Jennifer Lewis, Patton Oswalt, Jelly Roll, Wayne Knight, Adam Pally, Jennifer Hudson, Sherry Cola, Eduardo Franco, Andrew Santino, and Bobby Lee. Famous basketball player Stephen Curry also appears in the film and helped produce it, making this his first movie role. The development of the movie started around 2019 and it was officially announced in May 2024. Most of the cast members were later revealed in June 2025. Goat premiered in Los Angeles on February 6, 2026, and was released in theaters across the United States on February 13, 2026, by Sony Pictures Releasing. The movie received generally positive reviews from critics, with many people enjoying its humor, animation, sports action, and emotional moments. It also performed well at the box office and earned around $193 million worldwide. In a world where animals live and act like humans, a young goat named Will Harris dreams of becoming a famous rollerball player like his hero, Jet Fillmore, a Black Panther who plays for the Vineland Thorns. 10 years later, The Thorns are struggling badly and have not won a single game all season. Jet asks the team owner, Florence Flo Iverson, to do whatever is needed to complete the team by finding a sixth player. At the same time, Will is working at a diner while practicing rollerball in his free time. He is also having financial problems and cannot afford to pay his apartment rent. Hoping to make some money, Will sells his favorite sneakers and uses the money to challenge a famous horse player named Main Attraction, who plays for the Lava Coast Magma team. Even though Will starts the game strongly, he eventually loses. And because of his financial struggles, his apartment is taken away. After this, he moves in with his friends Daryl the capybara and Hannah the aardwolf. The next day, a video showing Will embarrassing Maine during the game becomes very popular online. Because of this, Flo suddenly signs Will onto the Thorns team. When Jet learns about and later it was rewritten, she becomes angry and publicly makes fun of Will during a press conference. Later, coach Dennis Cooper introduces Will to the rest of the team, which includes Archie Everhart, the rhinoceros, Lenny Williamson, the giraffe, Modo Olakenko, the Komodo dragon, and Olivia Burke, the ostrich. At first, Will mostly sits on the bench and does not get much playing time. However, during one game, Jet gets a technical foul and is forced to sit out, giving Will a chance to play. He scores the winning point and helps the Thorns finally win their first game of the season. This also earns him the respect of his teammates. While making a promotional video, Jet becomes frustrated and walks away from the shoot. Will follows her and tries to comfort her by taking her to the diner where he used to work. There, Jet sees how much the people in the city truly support her and the team. Will also tells her about how his mother always dreamed of seeing him become a rollerball player before she passed away. The diner owner, Carol, asks Jet to promise that she will bring home the claw, the championship trophy for the city of Vineland. Later that night, Jet joins an online live stream with Maine and publicly defends her team, while also allowing Coach Dennis to properly guide them. After this moment, the Thorns begin improving quickly and go on a long winning streak, eventually reaching the playoffs. Before the semi-final match, the team attends a party where Chloe secretly tells Jet that she has sold the Thorns only to make money for herself. She also says that the entire team will be removed and that Jet will never win the Claw Championship. Will accidentally overhears this conversation, but Jet tells him to stay quiet about it. During the semi-final game, the team starts playing very badly. In the final quarter, Will finally tells the team the truth about Flo's plans. Everyone becomes shocked and upset while the script while Jet starts playing selfishly and we refuses to work with the team. Even though the Thorns manage to win the game, the team members decide to quit because of Jet's selfish behavior. Before the championship finals, Jet apologizes to Will and emotionally admits that she is afraid of losing the legacy she has built throughout her career. With Will's support, developed the script and later it reunited the team and prepared to face the Lava Coast Magma in the final match. During the championship game, Man causes a serious injury to Jet's leg that may even end her career. She is forced it was rewritten. She is forced to leave the court and later returns using crutches. When she comes back, the crowd cheers loudly for her as she watches her teammates continue playing from the bench. In the final quarter, Archie gets thrown out of the game after defending Will during a fight with Maine. Seeing the team struggling, Jet decides to return to the court. Coach Dennis creates a new strategy for the final moments of the game. Jet distracts the opposing team and passes the ball to Will, who scores the winning shot and wins the championship for the Thorns. As the team celebrates their victory, Maine's famous hair accidentally gets burned off, while Flo is chased away from the court by Archie's twin daughters. Back in Vineland, the Thorns celebrate winning the Claw Trophy. During the celebration, Modo reveals that he actually won ownership of the team during a card game, which means the team can stay together and continue playing. Goat 2026 is one of the most ambitious animated films Sony Pictures Animation has produced in recent years. And a significant part of its appeal lies in its remarkably star studded voice cast. Directed by Tyree Dillehay and co directed by Adam Rosette, the film stars Caleb McLaughlin as Will Harris, an anthropomorphic goat who aspires to become the greatest of all time at a basketball like sport known as rollerball. The ensemble that surrounds McLaughlin is equally impressive, drawing from the worlds of film, television, music, and professional sports to create a vibrant, diverse roster of characters. Below is an in depth look at every major voice performer in the film and the animated animals they bring to life. Caleb McLaughlin as Will Harris. Caleb McLaughlin voices Will Harris, a teenage American pygmy goat who dreams of becoming a professional rollerball player. McLaughlin is best known to mainstream audiences for his long running role as Lucas Sinclair in Netflix's Stranger Things. And his casting here is a natural extension of his ability to portray earnest, determined young characters. Will Harris is the emotional core of the film. Small in stature but limitless in ambition. The character carries the classic underdog spirit that drives the story forward. And McLaughlin's warm, grounded vocal performance gives the goat a sense of authenticity and heart. Notably, Luke Simiti voices young Will Harris in the flashback sequences that establish the character's childhood dreams and emotional backstory. Gabrielle Union as Jet Fillmore. Gabrielle Union voices Jet Fillmore, a famous all star Black Panther rollerball player known as the face of the Thorns, who is Will's idol. Union is an actress with a long career spanning hits like Bring It On, Bad Boys 2, and the television series LA's Finest. Her casting as Jet is inspired. The character is complex, alternating between the glamorous face of a sports franchise and a deeply guarded individual wrestling with the fear of being replaced. Union brings a cool confidence to Jet that fits the Black Panther's sleek design perfectly, while also allowing the character's more vulnerable moments to land with genuine emotional weight. Jet's arc from dismissing Will to becoming his greatest champion is one of the film's most satisfying narrative threads. And much of that success rests on Union's layered performance. Aaron Pierre as Man Attraction. Aaron Pierre voices Man Attraction, an Andalusian horse who is the MVP of the league and the main antagonist of the film. Pierre, who gained significant recognition for his leading role in Rebel Ridge 2024, lends a commanding magnetic menace to Main Attraction. The character is everything Will is not, physically imposing, universally celebrated, and deeply arrogant. Pierre's deep, resonant voice makes the horse feel genuinely threatening, giving the film a villain whose physical and psychological dominance over smaller players feels earned. Main attractions rivalry with Will forms the backbone of the sports action, and Pierre ensures the antagonist never crosses into cartoonish territory, keeping him credibly intimidating throughout. Nicola Coughlin as Olivia Burke. Nicola Coughlin voices Olivia Burke, an ostrich rollerball player and member of the Thorns. Coughlin is beloved globally for her roles in Derry Girls and Bridgerton, where she has demonstrated a remarkable ability to balance comedy and tenderness. As Olivia, she brings that same mix of warmth and wit to an ostrich athlete, a character whose design is inherently comedic but whose presence on the team matters. Coughlin's light touch ensures Olivia feels like a fully realized teammate rather than a visual gag. Later, it was rewritten, and her chemistry with the rest of the Thorns cast adds to the sense that this is a genuine ensemble working together. David Harbour as Archie Everhart. David Harbour voices Archie Everhart, an Indian rhinoceros rollerball player, enforcer of the Thorns, and a single father of twin daughters. Harbour, also known to millions as Chief Hopper in Stranger Things, reunites himself with his former co-star Caleb McLaughlin for a very different kind of project. The role of Archie, gives Harbour an opportunity to play a character who is formidable and intimidating on the court, but tender and devoted of it. The detail that Archie is a single father raises the stakes for his character. He plays not just for himself or the team, but for his daughters. It is worth noting that Zul Arifin voices Archie in the Malaysian theatrical release of the film, reflecting the film's commitment to local casting in certain international markets. Nick Kroll as Modo Olakanko. Nick Kroll voices Modo Olakanko, a Komodo dragon roarball player and member of the Thorns. Kroll is one of the most prolific voice actors working today, with extensive experience in animated projects including Big Mouth, which he created, and The Big Les Show. As Modo, Kroll plays a character who reviewers and audiences have pointed out has an almost absurd level of self confidence and swagger. Kroll's natural comedic instincts make Modo one of the film's funniest characters, delivering the kind of deadpan, offbeat humor that animates the lighter moments between games. Modo's eventual ownership of the Thorns team, won in a card game, provides one of the film's most amusing payoffs. Stephen Curry as Lenny Williamson. Stephen Curry voices Lenny Williamson, a giraffe roarball player and member of the Thorns. Curry's involvement in the film extends far beyond voice acting. He also served as a producer through his unanimous media company alongside Eric Payton. The Golden State Warriors star brings an obvious passion for basketball to the project, and his animated counterpart, the towering giraffe Lenny, is a natural fit for an athlete known for his height advantage. The film marks Curry's feature film debut as a voice actor, and his presence gives the movie an authentic connection to the professional sports world it is celebrating. Curry's relatively natural, unaffected vocal performance fits Lenny's laid back demeanor on the team. Jennifer Lewis as Florence Flo Everson. Jennifer Lewis voices Florence Flo Everson, a warthog and owner of the Vineland Thorns. Lewis, an Emmy nominated actress best known for her role in Blackish, has a reputation for playing characters with enormous presence and force of personality. Flo Everson is the film's secondary antagonist of sorts, a team owner driven purely by profit, who eventually sells the thorns without regard for the players or the fans. Lewis's theatrical delivery makes Flo both entertaining to watch and genuinely contemptible in the story's more dramatic moments. Her voice work transforms what could have been a flat corporate villain into someone with real personality and edge. Patton Oswalt as Dennis Cooper. Patton Oswalt voices Dennis Cooper, a proboscis monkey and the Thorns coach. Oswalt is one of the most experienced voice actors in Hollywood, with credits including Remy in Ratatouille and numerous other animated productions. As the Thorns coach, Dennis functions as the team's tactical brain and emotional guide, the figure who teaches Will how to navigate professional play while managing a roster full of egos and personalities. Oswald's naturally enthusiastic delivery suits the coach role well, and his performance anchors many of the team's locker room scenes with genuine comedic energy and warmth. Jelly Roll as Grizz. Jelly Roll voices Grizz, a brutish grizzly bear roarball player. The country rap crossover star brings his naturally deep, gravelly voice to a character whose name and species communicate everything about his playing style. Grizz is a powerhouse on the court, and Lydia Itwa rewritten and Jelly Roll's vocal presence makes the character physical even in animated form. This casting is a good example of the film's broader strategy of matching the sonic qualities of a performer's voice to the visual design of their character, creating an instant sense of believability in the world. Jennifer Hudson as Louise Harris. Jennifer Hudson voices Louise Harris, Will's late mother. Hudson, an Oscar winning actress and Grammy winning singer, appears primarily in flashback sequences that illuminate Will's motivation and backstory. Despite limited screen time, Hudson's performance is one of the most emotionally affecting in the film. Louise's memory and her ambitions for her son drives Will forward even in his darkest moments. Hudson's rich, expressive voice makes Louise feel like a fully realized presence even when she is absent from the action. Sherry Cola and Eduardo Franco as Hannah and Daryl Sherry Cola voices Hannah and Aardwolf, who is Will's friend, while Eduardo Franco voices Daryl, a capybara, who is also Will's friend. These two characters form Will's social support system outside of Roarball, offering loyalty, humor, and a grounded perspective on his rise to fame. Cola and Franco bring relaxed, naturalistic energy to their roles, making Hannah and Daryl feel like real friends rather than plot devices. Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee as Chuck and Rusty. Andrew Santino and Bobby as the voice Chuck and Rusty, a musk ox and Egyptian fruit bat duo who serve as roarball commentators. This pairing is one of the film's most purely comedic elements. Santino and Lee are both stand up comedians with strong improvisational instincts, and their commentary roles in and their commentary to offer running jokes and meta observations about the sport without disrupting the main narrative. Supporting voices. Sports stars and fan favorites, the film also features a remarkable roster of real athletes and additional performers in supporting roles. Dwayne Wade voices Rosette, a bull roarball player for the Shadows. Kevin Love voices Daskas, a guerrilla roarball player for the Shadows. Angel Reese voices Prop, a polar bear roarball player for the Shivers. Aja Wilson voices Coyote, an American alligator roarball player for the Shadows. And Andre Iguodala voices Iggy, a zebra roarball referee. These real world sports figures bring additional credibility and fun to the universe of the film. Isha Curry voices Carol, a llama who owns the diner where Will's mother once worked, a poignant connecting thread in the story's emotional geography. Wayne Knight voices Frank, a gerbil who is Will's landlord, and Adam Pally voices Gerald, an armadillo who stopped cheering for the Thorns. Smaller but equally distinctive roles include Joe LaPuma as Sneaky, a white headed vulture shoe shop owner, and Ryan Khan as Theo, a gerbil who is a good friend of Well and one of Frank's sons. Rounding things out, Van Van voices Adi and Ari, Archie's twin daughters, whose brief but memorable appearance at the film's climax provides one of its most satisfying comic moments. Assembling the cast, the process of putting together such a diverse ensemble was itself a multi stage affair. In June 2025, during the NEC International Animation Film Festival, it was announced that Curry, Caleb McLaughlin, Gabrielle Union, Nick Kroll, Nicola Coughlin, David Harbour, Jennifer Lewis, and Patton Oswalt were part of the cast. The following month, Jennifer Hudson, Aaron Pierre, Jelly Roll, Aisha Curry, Andrew Santino, Bobby Lee, Sherry Cola, and Eduardo Franco were added to the cast. This deliberate build-up generated significant anticipation and demonstrated the filmmakers' confidence in their project. The final result is a cast that mirrors the film's thematic ambitions, a world where athletes, entertainers, and comedians coexist in an anthropomorphic universe, each bringing something distinctive to a shared story about dreaming big, overcoming doubt, and finding where you truly belong. The Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus praised the film's terrific voice cast as one of its central strengths, well earned compliment for what is, by any measure, one of the most carefully assembled animated ensembles in recent memory. Production development and origins, the story of how Goat arrived on cinema screens in February 2026, is one of the more remarkable tales of creative persistence and patient institutional belief in recent Hollywood history. The original spark for the film came from a chapter called Farm Team in Chris Tuga's illustrated book Funky Dunks. Producer Fonda Snyder saw potential in the concept and helped develop it into a full feature pitch. From this deceptively modest starting point, the idea began to grow. Slowly at first, quietly within the halls of Sony Pictures Animation, gradually attracting the attention of collaborators who understood what it could become. The film had been in the works by 2019, meaning the project spent nearly half a decade in various stages of development before it was publicly announced. This long gestation period reflects both the ambition of the filmmakers and the complexity of the task at hand. Building an entirely new sport, constructing an all animal world that felt both fantastical and emotionally grounded, and figuring out how to tell an underdog story in a way that did not feel exhausted by the sheer weight of its genre predecessors. All of this required time, iteration, developed the script, and later it was rewritten, and a willingness to start over when something was not working. In May 2024, it was officially announced that Sony Pictures Animation would develop an animated sports film titled GOAT, with Tyree Dillihay directing and Adam Rosett co-directing, while Stephen Curry and Eric Payton would produce under the Unanimous Media Company alongside Michelle Raimo Coite and Modern Magic's Adam Rosenberg and Rodney Rothman. Rick Michelle and Fonda Snyder served as executive producers, with David Schulenberg co producing. Aaron Buxbaum and Teddy Riley received screenplay credit, while Nicolas Curcio and Peter Chiarelli received story credit. The involvement of Stephen Curry as both producer and voice actor was not incidental, it was transformative. Something almost too perfect happened when NBA legend Stephen Curry signed an overall deal with Sony. And suddenly, the story of a small underdog athlete chasing greatness had real life synergy. Developed the script and later it was rewritten. Curry's presence gave the production an immediate credibility within the basketball world and opened doors to other athletes and real world court culture that might otherwise have remained closed to an animated feature. His unanimous media company became one of the film's key production entities, actively shaping the project's identity rather than simply lending his name to a marquee. GOAT was brought to life by a powerhouse team at Sony Animation Studios, led by Tyree Dillihay and co-director Adam Rosett, and by producers like Michelle Raimo Kuyate, who kept the project on course over its 7.5 year journey. The team also leaned on Eric Payton, another producer who helped connect them with NBA players and real world arenas, and Christine Belson, and the studio president who championed the idea of an animal centered sports movie pre production, world building, and translating a concept as high concept as an all animal sports world to a coherent visual and narrative reality required an extraordinary level of pre production investment. The filmmakers did not simply want to make a movie about animals playing basketball. They wanted to build an entirely new sport with its own rules, culture, mythology, and visual grammar. The central innovation of the film's world is the sport of rollerball itself. Rollerball courts are not static arenas. They are alive. Games unfold across oversized courts embedded in volatile biomes. The environment is not just a background, it is a participant. Heavier players can fracture the ground. Agile animals can exploit unstable terrain. This the script and later it was rewritten. That adds real strategic variation to the sport and makes every match visually unpredictable. This world building ambition meant that the production team had to think carefully not just about character animation but about environmental animation, physics, and the visual logic that would govern how different animals moved and competed in the same space. Uh, Character design emerged as one of the most demanding creative challenges of the pre production phase. Production designer Zhang Li and character designer Aaron Alboher revealed that Will Harris's design was inspired by three types of real world goat: Slovenian, Nubian, and Alpine. The care taken with the protagonist's design reflects a broader philosophy that ran through the entire film. Every character needed to feel grounded in the anatomy of a real animal while also being expressive enough to carry the full range of human emotion. As for Jet Fillmore, the 9-foot black leopard voiced by Gabrielle Union, the character's face was built using multiple diamond shapes simplifying forms from the natural world with sharp diagonals to create a sense of fierce agility. The team logos for the film were designed by graphic fan designer Emily Morgan, who took over 500 hours through 600 rough drafts across 7 color palettes. This the detail alone illustrates the depth of commitment to authenticity within the production. The logos are a small detail in the finished film, but the script hours spent perfecting them reflect a studio culture where every visible element is treated as though it matters. For the costumes of the animals, designer Dominic Dawson focused on their anatomy and built off the personalities of the teams. For costume designer Dominic Dawson, GOAT was an opportunity to build a visual language in which animal anatomy and basketball culture in and out of the arena could coexist. Only after understanding their physicality did she build an extensive streetwear reference deck, pulling from global designers, emerging fashion scenes, and real world basketball spaces like Rucker Park, Venice Beach, and West 4th Street. This approach, starting with anatomy and physiology before moving to cultural signifiers, ensured that the film's fashion felt earned rather than imposed, a natural extension of who these animal characters were rather than a costume applied from the outside. Regarding the broader visual aesthetic of the film, production designer Jang Lee explained that key inspirations for the visuals and aesthetics were Do the Right Thing, City of God, and The Jungle Book. This is a deliberately eclectic mix, a Spike Lee urban masterpiece, a Spike Lee crime epic defined by its vivid color and kinetic energy, and a classic of anthropomorphic animal storytelling. The combination signals a production that was thinking seriously about the cultural register it wanted to occupy, not just the animation lineage it wanted to extend, but the broader tradition of visually ambitious, socially rooted filmmaking it aspired to join. Filming, voice recording, and animation production, voice recording in animated filmmaking. The voice recording process is, in many respects, the equivalent of principal photography in a live action production. The performances captured in the recording booth become the foundation upon which animators build character expression, timing, and emotional range. For Goat, the recording process brought together one of the most diverse and accomplished ensembles in recent animated cinema. In June 2025, during the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, it was announced that Curry, Caleb McLaughlin, Gabrielle Union, Nick Kroll, Nicola Coughlin, David Harbour, Jennifer Lewis, and Patton Oswald were part of the cast. The following month, Jennifer Hudson, Aaron Pierre, Jelly Roll, Aisha Curry, Andrew Santino, Bobby Lee, Sherry Cola, and Eduardo Franco were added to the cast. The recording process for GOAT was characterized by a degree of creative flexibility that is only possible in animation. After early screenings, audiences showed that audiences did not respond to a meaner version of the Dennis Cooper character. The team pivoted, adding more animalistic traits and allowing Patton Oswalt to lean into his natural improvisational skills. This flexibility is the beauty of the medium. The ability to redraw a scene or re record a line to find the perfect comedic beat without the need for a massive live action reshoot. This iterative approach to character development extended well beyond Oswald's proboscis monkey coach. Throughout the production, developed the script, the filmmakers treated voice recording not as a one time event but as an ongoing conversation between performance and image. The recording sessions were also an opportunity to capture chemistry between performers, something that is notoriously difficult in animation, where cast members often record their lines separately. The comedic duo of Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee as the Roarball commentators, Chuck and Rusty, appears to have benefited from the performers' existing comedic rapport. Both are stand up comedians with a shared improvisational sensibility that brings the announcer booth to life with genuine spontaneity. Animation production, nearly 900 artists and crew members collaborated to craft the immersive arenas, meticulous details, and vibrant characters that bring Goat's world to life. This workforce represents a substantial industrial undertaking, a reminder that even the most creatively intimate moments in a finished animated film are the product of collective effort at a remarkable scale. The animation itself drew directly on the stylistic innovations that Sony Pictures Imageworks had pioneered with the Spider Verse films. GOT is an evolution of Sony's Spider Verse animation style with a more stylized comic book look and a unique visual language that emphasizes the movie's spotting action, as well as graphic textures. Developed the script and later it was rewritten. Bold outlines and layered shading that will feel familiar to fans of Spider Verse. The movie uses dynamic camera angles like tracking shots and overhead stadium views, plus frame rate modulation to mirror and exaggerate the feel of real sports broadcasts. The frame rate modulation technique is particularly significant. By varying the frame rate within individual sequences, the animators could emphasize the contrast between Will's quick, nimble movements and the lumbering power of larger animals, creating a visual rhythm that communicated the tactical dynamics of roarball without requiring lengthy exposition. To pull off the roarball sequences, the filmmakers leaned heavily into Unreal Engine for development and layout. Real time tools allowed them to test spatial clarity and pacing live, instead of imagining how a scene might look after rendering. The use of Unreal Engine in pre visualization represents a significant workflow innovation, one that allowed the directors to make more informed decisions about camera placement, pacing, and spatial composition before committing to the enormous resources required to fully render a scene. To design the impact frames of the film, artists used graphic sports card to add more flair into the characters. These impact frames freeze frame moments of heightened stylization that punctuate the action during particularly dramatic plays are one of the film's most visually distinctive features. The They draw on the tradition of sports car design, transforming animated athletes into collectible images that feel both nostalgic and entirely fresh within the context of an animated film. Sports consultation, one of the production's most unusual assets, was the involvement of former NBA player Andre Iguodala as a sports consultant. To keep the sports elements grounded, the production team brought in NBA legend Andre Iguodala as a consultant. He would look at the storyboards and pull from a massive library of NBA plays in his mind to help choreograph authentic gameplay, such as the cyclone play used in the film. This consultation process ensured that the rollerball sequences, while fantastical in setting, were grounded in the actual strategic logic of professional basketball, a quality that adult viewers familiar with the sport would recognize even as younger audiences simply enjoyed the spectacle. Post production, storyboarding, and editorial, the journey of GOAT began years ago in the storyboarding department. Unlike live action films, every single beat of an animated movie must be meticulously planned and drawn before a single frame is actually animated. The team spent 3 years working on pivotal scenes, like the Thorns versus Shivers game, to ensure every shot supported the emotional core of the characters. The scale of the storyboarding effort was staggering even by animated film standards. The level of attention was especially evident in a key action sequence that required around 5,500 drawings, far more than the roughly 300 a typical scene might demand, underscoring how seriously the filmmakers treated the mechanics of the sport. Action sequences, in particular, demanded an extraordinary level of iteration, with pivotal games requiring thousands of drawings to ensure that every shot, camera move, and play supported character arcs and emotional beats behind the scenes. A 12-person storyboard team shaped the acting, staging, and visual storytelling of every scene. The storyboard team's work is the invisible architecture of the finished film. The decisions made at this stage about where the camera goes, how long a beat breathes, and what angle best conveys a character's emotional state are the decisions that determine whether an animated film lands its emotional punches. The team built rollerball sequences through an evolving storyboard animatic, refining timing, spacing, and camera intent roughly 3 years before the final animation was locked in. Prop described storyboarding as the foundation of the entire film, with her team drawing a rough version of the whole movie, not just individual scenes, and repeatedly screening and revising it over the course of several years. The editorial process on an animated film is inseparable from the storyboarding process, and the film was edited by Claire Knight. The visual effects and cinematography work was handled by John Clark, whose job was to ensure that the film's various visual registers, the heightened stylization of the impact frames, the kinetic naturalism of the game sequences, and the quieter interpersonal moments between characters cohered into a single unified experience. Visual effects and final render the film's animation was done by Sony Pictures Imageworks using animation techniques also used in K-pop Demon Hunters and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like their previous films, the film uses a new art style of animation that is both graphic and more in the vein of street art graffiti. The connection to Into the Spider-Verse is important not just as a matter of technique but as a matter of artistic lineage. The original Spider Verse film was widely credited with expanding the visual vocabulary of mainstream animation, demonstrating that audiences were hungry for animated films that looked and moved differently from the dominant visual conventions established by Pixar and Disney. GOAT is a direct heir to that expanded vocabulary, pushing further in the direction of graphic boldness and kinetic expressiveness. The 3D printed model work during pre production also deserves mention. 3D printed characters on a mock rollerball court help to model authentic action. They track the script, giving the directors and animators a physical reference for how different animal body types would interact in three-dimensional space during gameplay. This fusion of digital and physical modeling techniques is characteristic of a production that was willing to use whatever tools best serve the creative goal. Music Chris Bowers and the original score, the film's original score was composed by Chris Bowers, a Grammy winning composer and pianist who has built one of the most distinctive careers in contemporary film music. Bowers noted that as he was initially associated with films where he could write jazz and black music in his early stages of career, he felt comfortable scoring for God, where he had extensive freedom on making music, which he listened to since his childhood, calling it an exciting experience. The score was eventually influenced by pop, hip hop, and R&B music. The music was seamlessly designed to match with the animation and visual style. The philosophical foundation of the score is notable for the personal connection Bowers brought to it. Bowers recalled that the basketball player late Kobe Bryant had earlier advised him to approach film music with a childlike wonder and to draw inspiration from John Williams' work. As a result, the score emphasizes heavy use of orchestra, especially in the rollerball sequences. This combination, the orchestral weight of Williams' influenced scoring combined with the contemporary sonic palette of hip hop and R&B, gives the score a distinctive character, one that can sweep up to and that can sweep up to the grandeur of a championship moment while remaining grounded in the cultural reality of the basketball world the film inhabits. The film's score was released through Milan Records and Sony Classical Records on February 13, 2026. Owen Gleiberman and of Wazir Return. Variety and Frank Scheck of The Hollywood Reporter considered Bauer's score to be exciting and fascinating. The score runs to 45 tracks on Spotify, a testament to the density and ambition of Bauer's compositional work on the film. From intimate character themes to massive roarball set pieces, the score covers enormous emotional and sonic ground. The soundtrack album, alongside Bauer's orchestral score, the film was supported by an equally ambitious popular music soundtrack. The first album featuring original songs for the film was released through Mercury Records on February 6, 2026, while the second album, consisting of original score composed by Chris Bowers, was released on February 13, 2026, through Sony Classical Records and Milan Records. The soundtrack was announced on January 21, 2026. The album featured contributions from VIC, Jelly Roll, Queen XCI, Flo, Joey Valence and Bray, Cortis, and Ira Star, amongst others. The official soundtrack for the 2026 film features 17 tracks spanning multiple genres, including pop, hip hop, and R&B, and includes contributions from both established artists and the GOAT movie cast. Hooligan and Grandmaster are the only tracks to be pre existing songs that were licensed for inclusion on the soundtrack, rather than original compositions created for the film itself. The marketing of the film leaned heavily on its music. Jelly Roll's I'm Good became the emotional headline in official audio and lyric pushes and trailer messaging. Jelly Roll, who also voices the character Grease in the film, brought a natural synergy between his musical contribution and his on screen presence. The grizzly bear, whose tough exterior masks genuine emotion, mirrors the themes of resilience and perseverance that I'm Good articulates so directly. The Mercury Records soundtrack album includes Jelly Roll's I'm Good, as well as tracks by artists such as Ira Star, Chris Patrick, Joey Vance and Bray, Brian Barnes, Cairo, Cortis, Queen XCI, Ross Truino, Eflo, John Bellion, Cole, Natania, Lil Nay, Party of Two, and members of the movie's voice cast. This deliberately broad roster of musical artists, spanning country, rap, Afrobeats, hip hop, indie pop, and Latin sounds, reflects the film's ambition to speak to a genuinely diverse audience, mirroring the ethnic and cultural diversity of the voice cast itself. Robert Stokowski of Pop Geeks wrote that the soundtrack reflects basketball's broad cross demographic appeal. This assessment captures something important about the film's musical strategy. Basketball, as a cultural touchstone, connects communities across lines of race, geography, and generation, and the soundtrack's genre diversity attempts to honor that breadth. The two album strategy, separating the popular song compilation from the orchestral score, was a thoughtful approach to serving different audiences. The song's album is widely available on major streaming services, while the score has gotten attention for its stylistic blending of modern beats meeting traditional orchestral storytelling. Music supervision on the project was handled by Sarah Bromberg, with the Dana Sano serving as executive music producer, overseeing the integration of both the popular songs and the Bauer's score into the finished film. Release Sakti's the theatrical release strategy for GOAT was built around one of the most significant dates on the American sports calendar. GOAT had its world premiere at Los Angeles on February 6th. The Los Angeles 6 had February 6th, a 2020 access screening on February 7, 2026, and was released in the United States on February 13, 2026, coinciding with the 2026 NBA All Star Game, which took place in Los Angeles that weekend. The strategic logic of this release date was impeccable. The NBA All Star Game is the single weekend in the American sports calendar most likely to draw the attention of casual basketball fans who might not follow the regular season closely. Precisely the audience that an animated film about a fictional basketball adjacent sport would want to capture. By releasing GOAT on the same weekend that professional basketball was dominating the national conversation, Sony ensured that the film's thematic subject matter would be top of mind for millions of potential viewers. The film was released in the United States and Canada alongside Wuthering Heights, Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, and Crime 101, and was projected to gross $20,025 million dollars from 3,700 theaters in its 4 day opening weekend. The release in 3,700 theaters represents a substantial wide release footprint. Reflecting Sony's confidence in the film's broad commercial appeal, the Los Angeles premiere on February 6, 2026, was a significant cultural event in its own right. The red carpet brought together the film's remarkable voice cast, including Gabrielle Union, Jennifer Hudson, Caleb McLaughlin, Stephen Curry, and many others in a gathering that underscored the film's unusual ambition. The premiere also served as an opportunity for early word of mouth to begin building ahead of the wide release. Well, the GOAT had an early IMAX screening on February 7, 2026, in addition to the standard theatrical release. The IMAX presentation was particularly appropriate for a film whose animation style was designed to be visually immersive. The impact frames, the rollerball court environments, and the film's dynamic camera work all benefit from the scale and sonic depth that IMAX exhibition provides. Home Media Good was released on digital platforms via premium video on demand on March 24, 2026, and was released on Ultra HD Blu-ray, and DVD by Sony Pictures Home Entertainment on May 5, 2026. The digital release, approximately 6 weeks after the theatrical opening, reflects the standard premium VOD window that has become increasingly common for animated family films, which tend to have a shorter theatrical longevity than adult oriented blockbusters. The physical media release on May 5, 2026, gave the film a second wave of visibility in the home entertainment market. The Ultra HD Blu-ray release in particular would allow audiences to experience the film's elaborate visual design in the highest possible quality, a significant consideration for a film whose animation style is such a central part of its artistic identity. The HDR color grading of the robot coats, the impact frames, and the film's street art influenced graphic aesthetics would translate especially well to a premium physical media format. The film subsequently became available on Netflix, streaming on the platform approximately 3 months after its theatrical debut, giving it access to the streaming giant's enormous global subscriber base and extending its cultural footprint significantly beyond its theatrical run. Reception box office performance. The box office story of GOAT is one of gradual triumph over initial expectation. The film grossed $7.1 million dollars on its opening day. This was a solid, if unspectacular, start, placing the film behind the romantic drama Wuthering Heights, which dominated the Valentine's Day weekend box office. It ended up debuting to $35 million domestic, finishing second behind Wuthering Heights. Nevertheless, it marked the biggest opening weekend for an original animated film since Elemental in 2023. This comparison to Elemental is instructive on multiple levels. Elemental, another Sony adjacent animated original, had famously underperformed at the box office before recovering its losses through streaming and home video. Goat's stronger theatrical start suggested that the film had successfully avoided that fate, finding a larger opening audience despite the formidable competition. The second weekend told a particularly satisfying story. In its second weekend, Goat finished first with $17.2 million, dethroning Wuthering Heights. This kind of second weekend performance, actually improving its relative position in the marketplace, is unusual and reflects both strong audience word of mouth and a favorable adjustments as Wuthering Heights lost some of its opening weekend novelty advantage. The film then made $12 million in its third weekend, finishing in second place to Scream 7. This gradual well paced decline through successive weekends is characteristic of a film with strong audience satisfaction, one that does not collapse immediately after its opening weekend. suggesting that positive word of mouth is sustaining attendance rather than diminishing it. GOAT grossed $103 million dollars in the United States and Canada and $90 million dollars in other territories for a worldwide total of $193 million. Dollars. Against an estimated budget of $80 90 million, dollars, the film's global gross represents a solid commercial success, particularly for an original animated property, one with no established franchise or pre existing brand recognition beyond the talent involved. In an era when animated sequels and franchise extensions dominate the family film marketplace, the commercial performance of an original animated feature at this level is genuinely noteworthy. The international performance of the film, totaling approximately $90 million outside North America, also reflects the universal resonance of the basketball and underdog narrative. The sport's global popularity, particularly in China, Europe, and Latin America, gave GOAT a cultural foothold in international markets that many other animated originals struggled to establish. Critical response aggregate scores and critical consensus. The critical response to GOAT was broadly positive, though with a notable divide between the film's visual achievements and its narrative ambitions. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 84% of 88 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.4 flasher 10. The website's consensus reads, spotting a terrific voice cast, nifty animation, and a solid model for youngsters, GOAT plays a familiar game with enough style and finesse to come close to the greats. The Rotten Tomatoes consensus is carefully worded. It praises the film without overselling it. The phrase plays a familiar game acknowledges the legitimate criticism that the film's narrative is predictable, while with enough style and finesse to come close to the greats, situates the film as a high quality example of its genre without claiming it transcends that genre. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 60 out of 100 based on 16 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. The gap between the Rotten Tomatoes fresh percentage 84 and the Metacritic score 60 reflects the different methodologies of these two platforms. Rotten Tomatoes measures whether individual reviews are positive or negative, while Metacritic weights scores based on the publication and averages them. A film can have a high fresh percentage on Rotten Tomatoes while receiving a modest Metacritic score if even the positive reviews are measured rather than enthusiastic, which appears to be the case here. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A plus to F scale. This audience score is perhaps the most telling data point in the film's reception. A cinema score A indicates that moviegoers who made the effort to see the film in theaters left satisfied, a measure of genuine entertainment value that does not always align with critical consensus. For a family animated film whose primary constituency is children and parents, audience satisfaction of this order is the most important validation. Selected critical reviews, the range of critical responses to GOAT illuminates both the film's real strengths and its genuine weaknesses. The, the most perceptive reviews tend to agree on what the film achieves and what it does not, even when they diverge on how much those successes and failures matter. Mark Kennedy from The Associated praised its visuals while simultaneously criticizing its writing as lazy, thin, and tiresome in its overly familiar redemption arc. Kennedy's review captures attention that runs through much of the critical discourse around the film. The animation is objectively extraordinary, while the screenplay adheres so closely to established underdog sports movie conventions that experienced viewers may feel they are watching a checklist of obligatory plot beats rather than a genuinely surprising story. The phrase overly familiar redemption arc targets the film's narrative structure directly, a criticism that cannot be entirely dismissed. Brandon Yu from the New York Times wrote that it's a story with few surprises and mostly rudimentary emotional concepts, but is enlivened by artwork with colorful texture and a dynamic animation style. Yu's review is more balanced in its phrasing, acknowledging that the animations does in fact manage to enliven material that might otherwise feel rote. The word rudimentary is carefully chosen. Yu is not saying the emotional concepts are wrong, only that they are basic. For a family film aimed in significant part at children who may be encountering these themes for the first time, rudimentary is not necessarily a fatal flaw. Eric Goldman of IGN gave it a more favorable review, writing that where Goat truly shines and stands out is in its animation and that it has a lot of fun with the idea that these characters truly are animals. Goldman's review zeroes in on one of the film's most underappreciated pleasures: the way the animators lean into the specific behavioral quirks and physical characteristics of the animal species they are depicting. The gorilla picking his nose, the cat like behavioral tics of Jet Fillmore, the rhino's instinctive protectiveness when it comes to his daughters. These details are not just background color, but a consistent comic vein running through the film that rewards attentive viewers. John Nugent of Empire gave it a 2 out of 5 rating, saying, "Lovely visuals, but this is a rare miss from Sony Pictures Animation. Watch K-pop Demon Hunters again instead." Nugent's review represents the film's harshest major outlet assessment, and it is notable for its framing, positioning Goat as a disappointment relative to the studio's own recent work. The comparison to K pop Demon Hunters, which had been widely acclaimed as a visual and emotional triumph for Sony Animation, places Goat in a demanding context. Against those standards, the film's narrative conventionality feels like a more significant failing. Owen Gleiberman of Variety offered the most enthusiastic major outlet reception, calling it a vibrant surprise. It's a highly original and rousing animated feature, a sports fable with a hip hop vibe and an off kilter cosmology. Gleiberman's review represents the polar opposite of the Kennedy and Nugent assessments. Where those critics see familiar genre scaffolding, Gleiberman sees genuine originality in the film's visual identity, its cultural attitude, and the specific way it has constructed its alternative universe. Gleiberman's use of the phrase of a kilter cosmology is particularly apt. Roarball as a sport, the volatile court biomes, the animal specific behavioral comedy, and the hip hop inflected world building combine to create something that does feel genuinely new, even when the plot it contains is not. Audience response and cultural impact beyond the formal critical discourse. GOAT generated a genuinely enthusiastic response from general audiences, particularly those drawn to animated films, sports, culture. Developed the script and the film's musical and the cinema score reflects a broad satisfaction that cuts across the demographic spectrum. The film's Brazilian dubbing became a particular point of discussion in online discourse. The Brazilian dubbing of the film used a voice actor for Will with the thick and characteristic Brazilian northeastern accent, which added more humor to the movie. This detail, the way local dubbing teams made creative choices that enhance the film's comedy for their specific audiences, reflects the film's cultural flexibility. The characters and their relationships translated across linguistic and cultural contexts because the core story, while familiar, is built on universally legible emotional dynamics. Audience reviewers on platforms like Letterboxd and IMDb echoed many of the critical assessments, praising the animation unreservedly while acknowledging the narrative's predictability. One viewer summary captured the dominant audience sentiment. It has some good jokes, but the movie is pretty predictable and solves issues really fast. The animation is genuinely goated. Multiple reviewers also singled out particular characters for a special praise. The Komodo dragon Modo Olakhenko, voiced by Nick Kroll, emerged as a consistent fan favorite, with audiences responding with studying to the characters' absurdly inflated self-confidence and the dry comedy that Kroll brought to his delivery. Reviewers noted moments like if Modo was any more of a snack, he'd eat himself as exemplary of the film's capacity for sharp character-specific humor that transcends the age-appropriate family comedy it nominally inhabits. The film's ending was also widely celebrated, particularly the moment when Modo reveals he has won ownership of the Thorns in a card game, a payoff that rewards patient viewers who have been enjoying his pomposity throughout the film, while simultaneously resolving the corporate threat to the team in a manner both absurd and wholly consistent with the character. The Rotten Tomatoes consensus revisited the Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus, sporting a terrific voice cast, nifty animation, and a solid moral for youngsters. Goat plays a familiar game with enough style and finesse to come close to the greats. Is worth returning to in conclusion because it encapsulates both the film's achievement and its limitation with unusual precision. The phrase plays a familiar game is, of course, a double pun. Literally, the film is about playing a game, and figuratively, it is following familiar dramatic rules. The phrase with enough style and finesse to come close to the greats is equally layered. It praises the film while implicitly acknowledging that it does not quite reach the highest tier. Close to the greats is not the same as being the GOAT, and the critical consensus is too honest to claim otherwise, but it is a significant achievement nonetheless. Sony Pictures Animation spent 7.5 years building a world, assembling a cast, developing a visual language, and crafting a sports universe credible enough that audiences left theaters feeling they had watched something that mattered. The film grossed nearly $200 million worldwide. It earned an A from audiences. It launched Tyree Dillehay as a significant new voice in American animation. It gave Stephen Curry an unlikely but charming second career as a voice actor, and it added Roarball to the imaginative vocabulary of a generation of young viewers who may grow up thinking that a small goat with big dreams is as valid a sports hero as any other. Whether or not Goat is itself the greatest of all time, it is very good. And in a genre crowded with mediocre imitators, very good is something worth celebrating. In this era of sports celebrities being paid mega bucks, it's not surprising that a kid would want to become a star player. And by kid, I mean a young goat, of course. Sony Animation's new effort concerns one such goat will aspires to play in the big leagues despite his small stature. The title has an obvious double meaning. Inspired by Stephen Curry's struggle to succeed despite numerous obstacles, the basketball great serves as producer and has a small voice role. Goat begins with a very young Will watching a game of rollerball, a sort of everything goes basketball played by animals, and proclaiming to his mother, Jennifer Hudson, that is what he wants to do when he grows up. Rally's date. Friday, February 13th cast Caleb McLaughlin, Gabrielle Union, Aaron Pierre, Nicola Kofkul, David Harbour, Nick Kroll, Jennifer Lewis, Patton Oswalt, Jelly Roll, Jennifer Hudson, Sherry Cola, Eduardo Franco, Andrew Santino, Bobby Lee, Stephen Curry, director. Adam Rosette, screenwriters. Aaron Buxbaum, Terry Riley rated PG, 1 hour 40 minutes cut to the now teenage Will, Caleb McLaughlin. Stranger Things continuing to pursue his obsession to follow in the footsteps, or more accurately, pause, of Jet Fillmore, Gabrielle Union. The flamboyant Panther star player of his local team, the Vineland Thorns. Jet may be a star, but the Thorns definitely are not, suffering one losing season after re-return, in part due to Jet hogging the ball and not being a team player, struggling to get by on his meager income as a food delivery worker. Will finds his fortunes improving as a result of an impromptu pickup game with the Andalusian horse main attraction, Aaron Pierre, a fearsome pro player. Will loses the game but his skills and pluck result in his becoming a social media sensation. So much so that, much to Jed's disgruntlement, the Thorns' publicity hungry owner, Flo, a very funny Jennifer Lewis, signs him to the team. Will is considered a laughing stock at first because he's a small in a game entirely populated by such bigs as his teammates, including an ostrich addicted to social media, Nicola Coughlan. A Komodo dragon with a bizarre accent, Nick Kroll, a giraffe who's lost his passion for the game, Curry, and a rhino, David Harbour, whose natural aggression has been tamped down since he became the father of twin daughters. Overseeing the hapless team is the proboscis monkey coach, Patton Oswalt, who doesn't so much give pep talks as grief counseling sessions. Will the plucky goat teach Jet how to be a team player? Will the Thorns overcome their difficulties and win the climactic championship game? Of course they will. And it's no spoiler to say so about an animated movie geared toward kids. How it all happens is the fun part, especially as depicted in the wildly imaginative visuals that include diverse stadiums based on various ecosystems. There's the cave, in which the players have to dodge falling stalactites, the inferno, the sitting at the top of an active volcano, the frozen cryosphere, where the game is played on ice and illustrated by the northern lights. And well, you get the idea. The hyperkinetic animation style, which bears no small similarity to Sony Spider-Verse hits, can be a bit relentless for adult viewers not steadily ingesting sugary substances. But the CGI images are undeniably dazzling and often very amusing in their depiction of the colorful anthropomorphic world populated by athletic animals of all types. Indeed, that is rewritten. The film is better looking than it is written, although there are funny takeoffs on such things as hip hop videos and cheesy sports promotional films. On the other hand, you have to suffer through such jokes as well, triumphantly announcing when there's a will, there's a way. The voice performances, including cameos from such sports figures as Angel Reese, Kevin Love, and Dwayne Wade, are consistently fine, with the standout being Wayne Knight as Will's gerbil landlord, beleaguered by his ever growing litter of pups. A diminutive young buck aspires to compete with rhinos and horses in roar ball, but this by numbers style is not the greatest of all time. No, possibly not even the greatest of half term. This loud, chaotic, and unlovable animated kids comedy feels as though it is bordering on AI slop, algorithmically generated and instantly familiar from Zootropolis. Sing and other movies with talking animals. It is a shame because it has a real life inspiration. Basketball star Stephen Curry, who was repeatedly told at the start of his career that he was too skinny and too small to make it as a pro. Curry is a producer here and has a performing role. But in spite of this connection, Goat lacks heart and soul and a sense of genuine emotions. What it does have is some pretty decent voice acing, bringing a degree of charm to the movie. Will Harris, voiced by Caleb McLaughlin, is a goat who has grown up dreaming of playing professional roar ball, a fiercer and faster version of basketball. But Will is a small and raw players are all bigs, powerful beasts such as rhinos and horses. Will's hero and the star of his favorite team, the Thorns, is a panther called Jet, Gabrielle Union, a champ close to retirement but determined to win the league. When Will gets a shot at joining the Thorns, he is laughed at, underrated but undeterred. There are some decent jokes, but they are lost in all the noise. Watching Goat is like standing next to a helicopter as it's taking off. The rollerball games are deafening and pitched at lightning speed in courts that switch from jungle settings to an Arctic ice experience. The underdog plot is as old as time, and for a film targeted at underage, there are a lot of scenes with mobile phones and characters constantly checking their socials. The only thing that lingers after leaving the cinema is a headache. Goat is out on a 13th February in the UK and US, and on the 26th of March in Australia. Animated movies about animals are fun. and so are underdog sports stories. So, getting both tropes at once, as the sports minded animal movie Goat does, turns out to be more enjoyable than the trailers would have you believe. Will Harris, voiced by Stranger Things star Caleb McLaughlin, has dreamed all of his young life of playing professional rollerball, which looks a lot like basketball and is played by large muscular animals. Will's dream is a little more specific as he wants to play for his hometown squad, the Vineland Thorns, alongside their star player, a panther named Jetty Fillmore, voiced by Gabrielle Union. The main obstacle to Will's rollerball dreams is that he's a goat and smaller animals have never played in the pros in rollerball. Will aims to prove himself, accepting an all-comer street ball challenge from the league's biggest showboat, a horse named Main Attraction, voiced by Aaron Pierre. When the footage goes viral, it catches the attention the Thorns owner Flo Everson, voiced by Jennifer Lewis, who signs Will to a contract. Of course, there's a catch. An obvious one to anyone who's ever seen the 1989 baseball comedy Major League. And like in that movie, everything hinges on whether this bunch of misfit athletes can come together and win the championship for Vineland. By the way, basketball star Stephen Curry is one of the movie's producers. So I developed the script, and so it's no coincidence that Vineland evokes thoughts of the Golden State Warriors' former home of Oakland. Thankfully, the parents of the target audience for GOAT weren't alive yet in 1989, and later it was rewritten. So, who's going to tell the kids in the seats that this vibrantly animated, excitingly pastelized cartoon is made from recycled material? They're going to have fun. So, who am I to spoil their good time? GOAT opens Friday, February 13 in theaters everywhere. Rated PG for some rude humor and brief, mild language. Running time 100 minutes. Cut to the chase. Hot off the tails of Disney's history making box office success with Zootopia 2, Sony Pictures Animation offers another Animal Kingdom saga with stunning visuals and unique world building that will enthrall younger viewers as well as give adults something to enjoy. This has a darker, grittier feel than its House of Mouse counterpart, which may upset sensitive moviegoers, though that on screen texture is its appeal, creating a tantalizing foray into a new, albeit predictable, underdog story. Bleaton synopsis: Will Harris, voiced by Caleb McLaughlin, is a young goat and aspiring rollerball player in the anthropomorphic city of Vineland. Rollerball is essentially basketball, except the court is filled with innumerable hazards like floating ice, magma lava, or giant tree roots. Will dreams of playing for his hometown team, the Vineland Thorns, whose star player Jet, Gabrielle Union, is closing in on retirement without having ever won the claw, the ultimate trophy awarded in the sport. Though he may be small, Will is mighty. Accepting a one-on-one pickup game against main attraction, Aaron Pierre, an oversized horse and the lead player of the Thorns' greatest rival, the Lava Court Magmas. When the clip of their showdown goes viral, Will is recruited by the Thorns owner Flo, Jennifer Lewis, to bring public interest to the team, comprised of a ragtag animal group, the doting daddy rhinoceros Archie, David Harbour, the rapper Giraffe Lenny, Stephen Curry, the chaotic Komodo dragon Modo, Nick Kroll, and the skittish ostrich Olivia, Nicola Coughlin, Stewart follows a traditional story arc for its characters. Though it isn't Will who has an emotional and spiritual growth, it's Jet, whose sour attitude and foul disposition are upended by Will's earnest positivity and formidable resiliency. She, a predator in the animal kingdom, is transformed by a small, unassuming goat. As the Thorns inch closer to a championship title, the team must rally around each other's strengths instead of allowing self doubt to dominate the game. Get your snout in the game. Sony Pictures Animation has made a name for itself as a studio interested in putting out refreshing forms of animation. Gone is the clean digital look that Pixar revolutionized with Toy Story. Goat opts for a bold, distinctly handcrafted look, a style we first saw in 2018's Oscar winning feature Spider Man Into the Spider Verse. It is characterized by a combination of computer animation and a hand drawn aesthetic that harkens back to comic book creation of generations past. The frenetic energy of the animation creates for a deeper world building, and the city and characters of Vineland immediately draw us in. The film's overarching themes, teamwork, perseverance, and self love, are wonderful messages for young viewers. Goat also encourages physical activity, sportsmanship, and the beauty of sports. For fans of basketball, the backstory of Stephen Curry's own rise in the NBA as a smaller player gives context for why he chose to produce the film and lend his voice to a character. All that said, the plot is certainly not reinventing the wheel. The character's growth follows a traditional trajectory, and there is no surprise that the underdogs dominate in the end. Viewers will grow an attachment to the little goat by the time the credits roll, and there is very little concern that everything will tie up in a perfect little ba things to no MPT rating. PG for some rude humor and brief mild language where to watch. In theaters now recommended age 7 plus Runti 100 minutes nightmare inducers. While there aren't many scary elements in this underdog sports comedy, summer and later it was rewritten. Some of the larger animals that are meant to intimidate will could be viewed as threatening to sensitive viewers, particularly from the perspective of a smaller animal, the Clydesdale horse. The Eiter, it was grizzly bear. The Scar-Ravaged grizzly guys, the manic Komodo dragon, and Jet, the temperamental black panther, could be viewed as threatening or aggressive. There is pushing and shoving, as one might expect from the a competitive basketball game, but not much in the way of other forms of violence or physicality. There are references to the death of Will's mother, though nothing explicit is shown. My biggest issue, the biggest qualm I had with the film was its overuse of smartphones as a way to further the plot. Will goes viral, and the story hinges on the idea that something he did in real life was only awarded because it was filmed, then broadcast on a social media platform. Will would not have been given a chance if it were not for his viral fame, a subplot that negates his hard work and tenacity. There is also a diss track that's made and posted to taunt Will, a form of online bullying that probably did not need to make the cut for impressionable viewers.